Mercedes just revealed massive future plans. So we're going to be going through that and 5 other stories in today's video. So make sure you like this video, and if you want more Mercedes F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get into the first story, because Mercedes are convinced for a very strong F1 recovery in 2023. Mercedes believes that its in-season development and understanding of its weakness means it will be in a very strong place in 2023. Mercedes swept to 8 successive world titles from 2014 through to 2021, but stumbled upon the introduction of new technical regulations for 2022. It claimed only one victory in a season in which it usually trailed Red Bull and Ferrari, though it made progress with its W13 after initially struggling to understand the flaws of the car. Reflecting on the 2022 campaign, Mercedes strategy director James Vowles said, "I don't think you can truly now, or even across the winter, state that we know everything about the W13. Across the year, we learned and discovered a whole series of new items that really we had to learn, understand, and develop very quickly. If you compare where we were in Melbourne, Imola, that first little sequence of the year at the tracks that are normal tracks for want of a better word, and then compare to where we were after the Austin update, the final update of the year, what we brought, so that Austin's, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. There have been some ups and downs, very much so, and that's part of what I meant by this car has items that we believe we understand, and some of them that's still not fully explained as a result of that. But if you look at the direction moving forward, the gaps to the front, especially on race pace, we had made huge amounts of progress, and you can only do that by understanding where your problems are, working on them, and working as a team. Mercedes still has to close a sizable performance deficit to champions Red Bull in order to fight for the title in 2023. Is it enough to win next year? Really where the question goes," said Vowles. "The confidence where we now have all the tools, our wind tunnel tools, our development, our performance tools here in the organization producing performance, which is much more than our competitors. It's allowing us to move further forward relative to them. There is still a void though, and Abu Dhabi really showed that. They still have to be caught up across the winter, and I think we have a very good process and system in place to do that. That development that you saw across the season will continue across the winter, and I think we'll be in a very strong place next year. You definitely have to watch out for Mercedes because we are bringing it all." And I think this is honestly fantastic to hear from Mercedes. You can definitely see that they are going to make adjustments. They definitely needed that season in order to come back stronger next year for 2023. Now, getting on to the second story is about Lewis Hamilton on Red Bull saying it's a bit of a Kardashian show. Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton has likened the F1 world drama to a reality TV show series with the recent entertaining stories. Hamilton was mainly speaking about the drama surrounding Red Bull this year with the 2021 cost cap breach, which resulted in them receiving a $7 million fine and a reduction of wind tunnel test time for next year, as well as two-time champion Max Verstappen refusing to follow team orders at the Brazilian Grand Prix. The 7-time champion was speaking to Channel 4 when he likened the drama to keeping up with the Kardashians. When asked what his thoughts were on off-track drama for the 2022 season, Hamilton joked, "I mean, it feels like a bit of a Kardashian show happening here. It's pretty hilarious. Some of the stuff that I've heard over the past few days has been so entertaining. I'm sure it'll all be on Netflix. It's going to be great." Hamilton went on to reflect on the difficulty year for the Mercedes with the multiple issues of the W13 car, especially after he wanted to come back fighting after missing out on the championship win at the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He continued saying, "I was definitely not expecting what would come after Abu Dhabi, and then just in general, love that I've experienced through the year, which I think is that has got me through the year. If I'm really being honest, with the challenges of coming back in, wanting to fight back, but not being able to fight back. So this year was one that I was able to open up a little bit more, a little bit on a different, that's really been a beautiful experience. So I'm really grateful for that." I think it's great to see that, because I think Lewis Hamilton definitely saw this season as a bit of a break, maybe getting back to that hunger that he once had. Being at the top for so long, you tend to lose that hunger, and now Hamilton can come back even stronger for 2023. Although this year was not ideal for Mercedes, Hamilton has said that it actually wasn't his worst year in the sport that he has had, and the whole team are going to be coming back fighting for the 2023 season. And I think it's going to be exciting to see what they are going to pull out of the bag. Now, getting into the third story is actually about George Russell explaining why it's not easy being teammates with Hamilton. George Russell might have outscored Lewis Hamilton in the first year as teammates at Mercedes, but he admits that racing alongside the 7-time world champion has been a challenge. George Russell has been reflecting on his first season as Lewis Hamilton's teammate at Mercedes, with the young Briton admitting that it's not easy to race alongside the 7-time world champion. Russell, who replaced Valtteri Bottas at the Silver Hours for 2022, following a 3-year stint at Williams, endured a tough start to his debut campaign, with the team struggling to match the pace of Red Bull and also Ferrari. Despite the 24-year-old becoming a regular point scorer and ended the year P4 in the World Championship on 275 points, while Hamilton finished a career-low P6 with 240 points, Russell also scored his debut F1 victory at the Brazilian Grand Prix in a 1-2 result for Mercedes. After a difficult beginning to the season, Russell admits that the team have been quite on a journey throughout the campaign, which has also seen him being pushed to the limit by Hamilton. I feel very fortunate to be in this team. Teammates with Lewis, learning a huge amount, being pushed to my limits, Russell told the F1 Nation podcast after the season closing Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It's not that easy being teammates with somebody as fast and as great as he is, but it has been a great year in many regards. What we all do, every single person in this paddock, we are so fortunate to travel the world, us driving the fastest cars in the world and around the best tracks in the world as well. I'm not good now, but still there's a lot to look back and be happy about. And I think that's honestly great because when it comes to what Mercedes are definitely trying to do and trying to achieve, they definitely have their sights set on winning another championship. While Russell is able to see the positives from 2022, most notably his win in Brazil, he acknowledges that the squad want to achieve much more next season. We've got to take the positives away from this season. The journey has come to a bit of an end, but we've been on as a team has been immense, but our standards, it's definitely not enough. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Everybody's going to be working immensely hard over the winter, and we're going to hopefully come back and next season in Bahrain fighting and challenging those guys in red and blue. So the fourth story is Toto Wolff himself saying that Mercedes is determined to avoid years in the wilderness. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff is determined to ensure that his squad won't end up on the sidelines for years to come. After the Silver Hour's recent era of domination of the sport came to an abrupt end in 2022, other teams that have prolonged spells at the top of the start, from McLaren and Williams to Ferrari and Red Bull, have struggled to retain their form following a sustained period of supremacy. Mercedes' own recent dominance start in 2014 with the introduction of the modern hybrid engine era and resulted in 8 consecutive Constructors' Championship and 7 Drivers' titles for Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. But problems with this car's year following the reintroduction of ground effect aerodynamics has left Mercedes struggling, and they ended the season in 3rd place in this year's team standings. George Russell secured the team's only pole of the year at Hungary and also won the Brazil sprint race to the start of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix from P1, which he went on to claim his maiden F1 victory. Otherwise, though, 2022 has been disappointing. There are now concerns that they have lost so much ground to Red Bull and Ferrari that they may not be competitive again until at least the next round of rule changes due in 2026. But Wolff refutes this suggestion. Of course, we are talking about it, Wolff acknowledged this week. We are analyzing what were the reasons in the past that teams that dominated over an era suddenly lost performance. You can trace it back pretty well, he suggested. Changes of regulation, people leaving, a tire that changed fundamentally. We are aware of all of that and regulation changes. We got it wrong, but all the other pillars are still in place. We have the same organization, the same capability, the same financial funding. I believe we have things in common and we can trace it back, he insisted. We have to tune the system and understand. Wolff insisted that the situation Mercedes currently finds itself is different from previous times when a top team had suddenly gone off the boil for a sustained spell and struggled to find its way back. In those cases, teams needed to fundamentally overhaul their organizations to get back on the right track, which Wolff says is not the case for Mercedes today. He pointed to Ferrari as an example and what happened after Michael Schumacher's 5 back-to-back titles from 2000 to 2004 under Jean Todt and Ross Brawn, the Red Bulls' fall from grace after 2013. They lost the whole top leadership and the key driver, Wolff explained. I think that is something where you can trace it back. With Red Bull, it was a fundamental situation that the power unit regulations chains upside down and no works deals basically. He argued it was a fundamental parameters change. We're looking at that and thinking we better be careful. He said we better be careful. So the fifth story is Mercedes tech innovations were banned for the F1 2023. Now Mercedes' radical front wing end plate first appeared at the Miami Grand Prix and featured unique design in the intersection between the flap section and the end plate. This was done in order to try to recruit some of the outwash that was lost with the new regulations. The flaps have been swept forward very aggressively in the outer section, so the rear lower edge on the end plate was completely detached from the flaps. Now on top of all this, another team such as Aston Martin also received a couple of bans when it comes to the upgrades they have made, and while the FIA was happy with both concepts to allow them to be used this year, formal tweaks have been made to the 2023 technical regulations to ensure that the grey areas that allowed them have been tidied up. The FIA single-seater technical director Nicholas Tombasis said, obviously this year they were both legal, the regulations have changed on both the front and the rear in different ways to stop those solutions. This has been done through alteration of the rules that are now stricter regarding the sweeping back of the front wing flaps, as well as being more specific about rear wing tip definitions. So with all this, it does come with some performance enhancements and performance advantages, and I think that's one of the reasons maybe why the FIA have banned it. So guys, let me know down in the comments what you think, and I'll see you soon. Peace.